Welcome, friends, to another episode of a commentary on the Yoga Sutras. And it is today and these last sutras and the ones that are following are all ways that help you come to know your true self. Basically, what you can do to come into knowing, to know yourself truly. And this Sutra 137 talks about you listening, hearing, speaking, being in the presence of someone who is realized, someone who is awake to their true nature. And how Patanjali formulates someone like this is vitaraga. It means someone who is detached from what? Vishaya, from objects. So it is very, very different from someone who is trying to be detached. Like if you're practicing being detached to your daily life, or something is happening and you're trying to be detached from it, or you don't really know what to do with it, you're trying to be detached. That's not it. You are actually, as you realize the self, there is a distance that is created, or the distance to whatever is happening in the mind is known and is seen. So it is a completely different kind of detachment that follows realization. There is a distance to objects. It does not mean there are no thoughts. It does not mean there are no desires. It means that you, who you are in truth, is always aware of that, and there is a distance to it. And so all these people that are realized, if you are energetically a little bit more attuned, there is something from a very personified, identified mind. It seems that they are a bit aloof. They are a bit more distant. That distance doesn't mean they are less loving. They're actually more loving, because the love that they have come to know is more impersonal. It's more impartial. And it doesn't always come from a perspective that is based on identities and based on relating and relationship. How we usually, as long as we are identified, how we connect to people is I connect to you. I have a relationship to you. Someone who has transcended that game is not needing necessarily to connect in this way, because they know themselves as that which is already unified. It is already connected. It doesn't search for connection. It is what is already one. And so this kind of distance to objects and this kind of slight aloofness or slight detachment that is just present is, for those of you that are a bit more energetically attuned, it is actually very very present. You will notice this. They are just not so personal because they are not so personally inspired anymore. Identity has shifted towards that greater essence. That is what operates. That is what prompts. And so if you listen to anyone, whether dead or alive, that is realized, you will come to notice this kind of vitaraga vishaya, some form of detachment from the world of form, appearances. They just have been seen through as what they are. And listening or being in the presence, going in a retreat, going to a membership, doing a course, reading a book, even watching movies of these people, it can greatly assist you because the realm that is transmitted is also not the mental one. There is something far beyond that. And this is also what I invite you to do when you listen to this talk or when you listen to other kinds of talks that are non-dually inspired, that come from a different vantage point. You can obviously focus on what I am telling you or what these people are telling you, the words they use, the concepts they use. And you will notice that a lot of you that start with being interested in these, in discovering consciousness on a deeper level, the first thing that happens usually for the person is it clings to the words. It clings to the understanding, the conceptual understanding. I'm trying to conceptually understand what is my true nature. I try to conceptually understand what is consciousness. I try to conceptually understand what is consciousness versus matter. Try to conceptually discriminate what is what. I also try to understand what is the difference between the search I have been on and this deeper investigation into presence, into source, into your divinity. And it has relevance. And it is also important to conceptually start to understand, this is what I'm actually looking for. And also to conceptually understand that many pathways do not lead you there. All these things can be helpful. So there is an element that is happening usually when people listen very carefully to the words that come from that. And then there is obviously more of notice these kind of different levels in whatever realized or non-dual teachers you're listening to. Then there is a more like a more soul-based or a more energetic kind of level, right? It is deeper than just the concepts or just the understanding the person shares. It is more that these are all distinct, small, different, not really so different, but different radio channels of the one radio station. And each one has their own way of actually explaining or displaying or trying to transmit or trying to offer some form of teaching. And you like it, their ways, you like it or you don't like it. It is just some of them speak to you. There's all different backgrounds that these teachers come from. You might resonate more with a certain background or a certain way of explaining things also. It all holds relevance for distinct areas also in which these people are actually, supposed to share this knowledge. Also for you, in which you are supposed to share this knowledge. That's why you are probably listening to this in the first place. And then there is a completely non-causal level. And that is very different too. It isn't just about this detachment, this detachment to objects, is what this then implies. What is it that is talking? And what is happening for you on a more non-causal level is really an encounter with this self. Because what is speaking to you and what is listening is already the self. So there is a completely non-causal level also to these kind of talks. And so how can you be aware of that non-causal level? Like, how can you be aware what is transmitted from that deeper essence to your deeper essence? It is that after listening, being in the presence, doing practices, whatever, going to retreat, being in membership, listening, afterwards, you come into touch, hopefully, with your own being, with your own non-causal level. And there is something that finds this, you find this, but it is also really coming more into the spontaneous glimpsing of that non-causal essence of what you are. And that is that after such a talk or after you listen, for example, something happens to you non-causally. For example, you have a complete outburst of joy. It isn't that you have actually done something that usually gives you great joy. It is that this non-causal level knocks on your door. The self makes itself known. The self that you are. This is possible because that level is already one. And so you become aware, what is this non-causal level like? There might be a sudden tranquility or peace that sets in after listening to someone like that. There might be clarity. You sit there and suddenly there's enormous clarity that just comes on its own accord. No cause for it. And kindly understand also not the person isn't causing this. This is caused by the self, by what you are. You are simply coming into contact with that essence of yours, that part of yours that is sometimes so obstructed. That part of yours is causeless. And so there might be causeless joy, causeless peace. You might simply be catapulted out of your personal mind for some time. What that implies is just silence. There is a silence that settles in. And the silence is distinct. It is not a silence that you know because you are wanting to be silent. Again, it is no thoughts. You might be catapulted into stillness. Stillness without thoughts. Just complete stillness. And so listening or even, watching a lot of different videos from realized people might act, or sitting with them, going to retreats, doing their courses, actually does help. But it always also takes a bit of you. Notice what happens. Notice how your awareness is sharpened. Notice how clarity sets in. Notice how causeless joy suddenly erupts. Notice how peace comes in. Notice if there, after this talk or after such talks, there is stillness, there is just a tranquility or a quiet. This ultimately is not coming from outside yourself. You're listening to yourself already then, and it emerges, comes from inside. It is the most beautiful reminder to you that what you're looking for is already here. And often these kind of glimpses, these kind of non-causal, more um, direct emergences of the self, like what comes more directly out of it, out of it, helps you also. It keeps you motivated. It keeps you it keeps you in the loop, and you start getting in touch with it. It can be very, very touching. And also, don't have a mental concept. This is very helpful. A lot of teachers are associated with something. You associate them again mentally with a certain tradition or with a certain way of explanation. And all of it is just this mental overlay. Mental overlay. I could also just sit here being silent. But obviously, I do understand the necessity for the mind that wants to understand, and for the necessity of the mind also to start discriminating, start more understanding what that is. But what is transmitted, and it's also not just energy that is transmitted, it is non-causal. It is yourself. You are already transmitting to yourself. I can tell you a story. There is a very beautiful movie I once watched a couple of years ago, actually. And the movie was about Ramana Maharshi. It is called Jnani. It is about jnanam, about wisdom. It's a very, very beautiful movie that shows a lot of different footage of Ramana Maharshi, and it shows also some people that knew him, and it's also just very nice. And it was very nice for me at that time to watch it, because it shows a lot of people in Tamil Nadu in India. They have a distinct way of talking that I know, and a distinct way of culture. It was just very nice for me to watch that movie. Now, Ramana Maharshi was transmitting these teachings mostly silently. He would just sit, he would just abide as awareness. This was his way how to transmit. Because literally, all what we are saying doesn't even scratch, and can also not really conceptually transmit to you what you are. And so he was just silent. So I was thinking, if I watch this movie, yeah, at the end of it, and I will probably feel very silent. I will probably feel this is probably what I can get out of that movie, yeah, at that time. Feeling very silent, feeling very quiet. So I watched this movie, and I can recommend it to you. It's really a nice movie. And after the movie, I just felt that I had such pleasure watching it. It was just giving me this enormous pleasure, enormous joy just watching it. And then nothing happened for like 2 or 3 hours after watching this movie. Then, after 3 hours, literally out of nowhere, I started laughing. I couldn't stop laughing. It wasn't stopping. I was probably laughing for 45 minutes straight. It was absolutely uncaused. There was nothing, nothing that had caused it before. I didn't suddenly, it was just coming from inside. It was just this burst of laughter that came from inside. And so I want you, when you listen to these amazing people, whoever it is, that is dedicated and devoted to speaking from source, listen to their words. Yes. Also maybe see their energy or whatever you feel you can grasp on that energetic level. But also just come to become aware what happens to you non-causally, just from an encounter, a meeting with the true self, the level of joy, non-causal peace, non-causal clarity, non-causal love, whatever emerges, knowing again, it is not the teacher. It is yourself knocking on your own door, making itself known, helping you to start glimpsing, feeling, experiencing that non-causal level of yourself that is already here, that is shared, that is one being. And so 137, Patanjali says, or and listen, talk to, be in the presence of someone who has transcended the level of objective reality. Namaste.